Today, we'll be looking at one of the most iconic and classic sci-fi horror films of the 1960s black and white era, The Village of the Damned, based on the novel The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. The film was originally going to be an American production, but the studio kowtowed to religious groups, because America, moving the production to Britain instead. So get ready for many, "Oh, that's where that reference comes from" moments with The Village of the Damned. The film starts peacefully in the quaint but fictional village of Midwich, which is actually Letchmore Heath. And in case you're wondering, yes, Midwich Elementary School from the Silent Hill series is a reference to this film. Our main character, Gordon Zellaby, is on the phone with another protagonist, Alan Bernard. However, before the film has barely had time to begin, strangeness occurs, as mid-conversation, Zellaby falls unconscious. But it's not just him, as people mid-activity have fallen unconscious littering the streets, as the town clock ominously chimes 11 o'clock over the opening titles. And I'm really glad they did the opening titles this way, because if they'd have done it at the start, with the birds chirping and the sheep baaing in the fields, with this music playing, it would have been a serious whiplash of tone if Village of the Damned preceded that. It's now been an hour since Alan was cut off on the phone from Zellaby. His commanding officer believes it's nothing, but Alan hasn't been able to get through to anyone in Midwich, and asks to leave early to check if everything's alright. While on his way to Midwich, Alan meets with a classic British Bobby out investigating a missing bus. So Alan goes on ahead, but almost immediately finds the missing vehicle, crashed at the side of the road, which the officer goes to investigate. However, he doesn't get very far. And I love the fact that Alan sees this happen and his immediate response is, "Fuck this, I'm out of here." But obviously he's thinking logically and going to get help. Alan soon returns with the frickin' army, so he clearly doesn't mess around. And they've cordoned off the border to Midwich as we see them use an actually pretty clever technique to figure out the limits of this bizarre unconsciousness phenomenon. Firstly, by using a canary, which, quite comically... Oh, but don't worry, he's not dead.
Well, he's pining for the fields.
They then also send in a soldier with a gas mask attached to some rope, and just as the local doctor shows up, the soldier, like everything else, collapses. When he's dragged back over, he soon wakes up, yet he feels extremely cold for some unknown reason. I do like the intelligent and methodical approach to the phenomenon. It's very realistic, with them first considering it as some kind of gas, but then moving the theories on from there when they figure out that the boundary is too precise. There's no movie logic, it's all real-world stuff, which of course increases the immersion into the story. In an attempt to get answers, a reconnaissance plane has been sent to fly over the village. It's in contact with the troops on the ground, and Alan tries to get some information on Midwich from the air. The pilot says he can see people but no movement.
I can see some people, but they're not moving either. They're lying on the ground.
I can see fuck all. What's he talking about? It's hard enough to see movement from that height. How the hell can he see non-movement so easily? Alan tells the pilot to descend, but to pull up if he starts feeling strange. That's easier said than done, though, as when he gets to a certain height, the pilot loses consciousness, ending with him impacting the ground spectacularly. The plane crash is given a lot more attention here than it is in the book. I guess the filmmakers just wanted that extra punch. Another difference in the book is that during this phenomenon, a large circular shape can be seen in the middle of the village, obviously to imply that this was all caused by aliens. That's left out of the movie, making it all a lot more ambiguous, which I prefer. It leaves it far more to the imagination and character speculation. And almost to really rub it in the face of that pilot, mere minutes after crashing, the phenomena reverses itself, with everyone waking up like nothing's ever happened, as we see the people in the bus get out and the assortment of villagers recovering. Returning to Zellaby and his wife Anthea, they at first think it was just them, but Alan quickly shows up to explain how the village was cut off, and now the army has a large presence in Midwich to try and find something, anything, that could have caused the incident. Zellaby is a professor, so he makes sure they obtain the correct samples of everything. At headquarters, Zellaby is allowed to keep an eye on the situation, thinking that everyone needs to be kept under close observation. And I love that there's absolutely no clear reason for such an incident to occur. and everyone, the audience included, is left with just vague questions, since any kind of explanation could potentially end up sounding ridiculous anyway. But the plot thickens for Zellaby as his wife happily announces she's unexpectedly pregnant. However, she's not the only woman with an unexpected pregnancy in Midwich, as the doctor tells another who's quite distraught. And the doctor, with Zellaby, tries to get the vicar to share what he's heard in confession. But they ascertain the facts of the situation. Every woman in the village who can have a child will have one, and the births coincide with the blackout incident. Which I think at this point, it would have been a far more incredible series of coincidences if the current weirdness didn't match up with the previous weirdness. Also, it's not mentioned in the film, but this is why the book is called The Midwich Cuckoos, because cuckoos lay their eggs in other birds' nests who would then feed and nurture the child. They're known as brood parasites. The title gives a nice air of menace to the concept, but it might have been too subtle for a film, especially when they omitted the scene explaining cuckoos. The town has set up mobile examination centres to deal with all the women ready to give birth, with Zellaby getting the results on his wife.
It's one of the most perfectly formed embryos I've ever seen.
Ah, yes, perfectly formed. Well, that was until we bombarded it with X-rays. Ha ha! It's probably got 2 heads by now. Ah, the 60s. Zellaby returns home to tell his wife that despite a strange accelerated growth rate, the baby is fine. But she, quite understandably, is scared about the strange situation. But it's just as weird that Zellaby, a supposed scientist, is completely naive to it all. But perhaps it's because of his strong desire to have a child. And like every other woman, Anthea gives birth with the doctor on hand to give his professional expertise in making sure it's a healthy child.
It's a terribly busy, Mr. Zellaby, but Doctor said to tell you that Mrs. Zellaby's fine.
And the baby?
Perfect.
Ah, well, that's great to hear. Oh, and here comes the doctor.
You got a cigarette?
Ah, the 60s. But seriously, Doctor, why be so subtle about it? Perhaps for your next trick, you can attack the babies with hammers. Ha ha ha. Anyway, Anthea is perfectly fine, and I imagine the fact that we haven't seen her or any other woman showing any signs of pregnancy is due to the film sparing the sensibilities of its 1960s audience. Also, it's clear things are still pretty weird because Zellaby's dog is very aggressive and scared of the new baby. Later, Zellaby and the doctor are examining his child's hair, finding it shaped like a capital D. And they also note how the children's nails are strangely narrower than regular nails, and they have eyes described as arresting. And apart from the eyes, which is the film's most notable thing, the other aspects of the children are never explored or even shown again. I know it's supposed to illustrate how the kids aren't strictly speaking human, but I think the eyes are enough, considering we never actually see their bizarre fingernails. The men are then interrupted by a scream from upstairs in the baby's room. Anthea is acting quite mental, even dunking her hand in a pot of boiling water. But don't worry, Zellaby knows exactly what to do. Once again the 60s and its slapper she's hysterical approach. Oh god, Tumblr's gonna shit itself over that one. Once Anthea has come to her senses, she explains that she gave baby David a bottle of milk that was too hot, making it clear that David did some kind of mind control thing. The theory made all the more obvious as the child continues the unblinking stare of a serial killer. Baby David, who's growing quite rapidly, shows advanced intelligence for his age. Later, Zellaby has brought Alan in to show what he's discovered about the children, first by explaining a Japanese puzzle box and how to open it. Then David opens the box without knowing the solution. But a Japanese puzzle box hasn't really got anything to do with intelligence. Yes, it's interesting that David managed to open it quickly, but it doesn't really prove anything, as it's not logic-based. It's all about how quickly you can find the different sliding mechanisms. But it becomes more intriguing as Zellaby gives the box to another child in Midwich, which she opens very easily. He explains to Alan the children share a hive mind, that he further demonstrates with another child, but the box is taken by his shithead brother. That is when we see the full extent of the children's abilities, as their eyes glow ominously. Even though you can quite clearly see how they divided the scene between film and still photograph to get that effect. But after the brother is stared at by the two children for a moment, he soon returns the box to the child in a trance-like state, where he swiftly opens it up. Also, you might not notice it at first glance, but if you take another look at the children, David, this girl, and this boy are actually played by the same child actor. So there you go, that's how they did it. It was just a simple magic trick. Time has progressed with the Midwich children, that's the normal children, don't get along with the newer children of the town, but since they walk around like a munchkin Gestapo, I can't really blame them. One of the group is hit on the head by a ball, which she didn't even flinch at, and she's stopped by David from using her psychic glare.
No, Nancy. Leave them alone.
When really, the kids who threw the ball were the real dicks in that scenario, so I really couldn't care less if they received some kind of psychic glare punishment. Oh, and also, you heard David speak there for the first time, and it's quite strange how that's the actor's real voice with no effects or dubbing. He really does a great job of that passive menace. The kids are buying groceries, and they can tell the woman running the place would like them to stay away, since they have the ability to read minds now. David, who seems to be some kind of de facto leader, agrees that they won't come into the shop again. Which kind of makes the whole thing even weirder, because the children haven't really done anything wrong, and have taken the abuse towards them completely without question. I mean, the stuff when David was a baby makes us think that something else might be going on, but so far, there's nothing particularly evil about the children. Making it all the stranger when Alan informs Zellaby the children are completely bad and irredeemable. Zellaby says that children are taught right and wrong, so that's what he will do, which Alan disagrees with. Yet the children, right now, are passive and obedient. Perhaps you don't want to poke that hornet's nest without reason. Zellaby and Alan are called to London due to a new development in the Midwich incident, as it's also happened in other places around the world. First Australia, where 30 children were born on the same day, but not surviving beyond 10 hours. Let's be honest, it's Australia. Something would have killed them eventually. My bets would have been on the giant fuck-off spiders. There were also 10 births in an Eskimo village, but because the children were blonde, born to black-haired mothers, it violated some kind of taboo and the children were killed. Which in no way paints the Eskimo people as a violent barbaric race in some bizarre jingoism from the film. But the film doesn't just apply that to Eskimos. There was also a similar incident in a Mongolian village where both child and mother were killed. But there is one last group of children in Russia who have survived and are being educated. So I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen to them. After that awful news, the men speculate on the origin of the children, with one professor...
I went into the question of mutation. Once in a great many thousand years, an abrupt jump may take place in animal or in vegetable life. A new variation suddenly occurs for no apparent reason.
Who's apparently Professor Xavier, and there's obviously the theory of alien interference, but none of these theories have defined answers. Zellaby requests more time with the children, but that's when the topic of casualties caused by them comes up. Considering we've not seen or experienced yet the actual threat of these children, it isn't particularly obvious, so it just looks like a group of men terrified about something they don't understand. Zellaby does encourage rationality, though, in this situation, by not locking the children away like the other men want. It's a pretty strange situation the movie's created here, because we're supposed to agree with the military and have the children bombed to oblivion. Zellaby, the man who is encouraging restraint, research, and not being too hasty, is supposed to be the bad guy, especially considering how the movie ends. How many times do you see a movie on the side of the military? That's so weird. Back in Midwich, Zellaby takes on the responsibility of teaching the children himself, who now all live under one roof, away from the village. Zellaby wants to ask the children something, but they already know what he wants, and that he's unsure of how to articulate it. David explains they can only read the thoughts that are in the front of his mind, though, but makes him aware that they will develop the ability to delve further soon, which doesn't freak Zellaby out at all. He eventually asks the children if they are aware of life on other planets, which the children go completely quiet about and don't answer his question, pretty much confirming they do know. Zellaby has also noticed that the children are always nervous when a plane flies over Midwich, but David tells him he shouldn't ask such questions when he tries to ascertain whether their power can reach the height of planes. Later, Anthea takes David to live at the school when a motorist, who actually should be looking where he's bloody going, nearly runs over one of the children. I'm guessing she won't be taking a simple apology. Nope, doesn't look like it. Huh. Well, that wasn't so bad. I'd say that motorist learned a very valuable lesson and won't do it again. Ugh. Well, if you will store nitroglycerin in the front of your car, that's bound to happen. That man was a menace to society. Midwich holds a hearing about the man's death, and Anthea tries to explain what happened, but she strangely can't remember the event. They want to pass a verdict of accidental death, but the man's brother starts shouting that the children did it. Normally, it would be fine for him to do so and make him a good guy in this situation, but later when Zellaby and co are walking, they see the man with a shotgun waiting to shoot the children, which doesn't really help his case. Do you see what I mean about how weird the situation is? Because, yes, the children killed someone, but then, paradoxically, the normal people do something just as bad, or as the other countries do, even worse. Which would be brilliant if that's what the film was going for, but it's clearly not. We're supposed to hate these children just like everyone else does. When, really, everybody seems to be just as bad as each other here. But anyway, Zellaby and Alan try to dissuade the guy from shooting and to leave before the children get any closer. But that's not enough for them, as they sense the man's intention to harm them. So they take action, while keeping the others in a trance, by making the man shoot himself in the head. And I know I've been defending the children's actions for the most part, which is the position the book takes, but from now on, they get a lot less ambiguous in their evilness. And 19 minutes till the end is a bit too late to show that your antagonists are actually bad. That night, everyone talks about what happened, and Zellaby finally accepts that the children are evil, but still wants to protect them. And it's then Alan tells them that a nuclear bomb has been dropped on the Russian children, with reports of the children attempting to take control before they were atomized. And the military are pretty much going to do the same thing with the Midwich children. And now all the town's men have formed an angry and potentially drunk mob, as they go full on pitchforks and torches, intent on burning the school and the children inside, because this'll go well. However, the mob is met by David, who through the use of his death glare, gets the ringleader to drop his torch and burn himself alive. And at the same time, Alan arrives to witness the aftermath, which is still nowhere near as bad as it was in the book, which had at least 4 deaths. But come on, I don't think anyone would say that wasn't complete self-defense on the part of the children there. And the guy who burned was a complete arsehole to begin with, saying this,
I hope that none of them lives.
Even before the children were born. So he's not exactly the biggest moral compass in the village. Alan goes into the school to, I guess, give the children a thorough telling off, but David reads Alan's mind, telling him what happened to the other dead children won't happen to them, and to make sure they'll survive, the children mind control Alan to leave them alone, which sends him catatonic. He seems to recover quickly at Zellaby's house though, which, considering what they could have done to him, it's pretty harmless. Downstairs, Anthea finds David there waiting to speak to his father. She tries to reason with her son through a live and let live approach, but all he wants to do is speak to Zellaby, who listens to him. Since Zellaby isn't afraid of the children, he's more trusted than anyone else, so David asks for help to leave and disperse among the populace. He's confident they'll eventually develop the ability to build more colonies, which has quite the horrific implications if you think about it. However, Zellaby agrees to help, and David trusts him because he knows he can't deceive the children. But unknown to them, he's found thinking about a brick wall might be able to block the mind reading. And that Friday night, when Zellaby's set to help the children, he tells Alan and Anthea he might have found a way of getting through to them, reassuring his wife it'll be fine. But Zellaby is acting strange, telling Alan to look after Anthea. We then see why, as he's preparing a time bomb to eliminate the children. But while he does, Zellaby quite cleverly continues to stare at the brick wall, so that'll be in the front of his mind. And after saying goodbye to the dog, Zellaby goes to the school and his death. Which is a surprisingly dark turn for a film in the 1960s, especially one that wasn't comfortable filming in America due to the whole virgin birth thing. Also, in the book, it's established that Zellaby has a heart condition and only has a few weeks left to live, so it's much less of a sacrifice, and more about the guy saying, "Oh well, might as well go out with a bang, I guess." So the film definitely has a more moving ending. While driving, Anthea feels something is wrong and returns to Midwich. At the same time, Zellaby has started his lesson, but the children are more interested to hear what arrangements he's made for them. But they sense he's nervous about something, and an epic battle of wills ensues, as Zellaby continues to think of a brick wall as the children try to break through this barrier. And it's quite clever how the wall in Zellaby's mind crumbles under the children's assault. It's an incredibly well done scene, full of tension and suspense. But just as the children realise about the bomb, it explodes, destroying the place, and Anthea and Alan watch it burn from the road. There's also a shot of the children's eyes floating, which some people interpret as the children now being something incorporeal. But I think it's just to be creepy, really. So that was Village of the Damned. And you know what? I can definitely see why this is considered one of the all-time classic horror movies. It's definitely a film of its time and it shows its age, but that only serves to give it more charm and a sense of reality. It's all placed in a very realistic setting where people react very realistically. There's no stereotypes here. Well, except maybe for the nuke it from orbit, it's the only way to be sure military colonel. The fact that there's no adequate explanation for what happened or for the children makes it all the more appealing to watch. By today's standards, this film is very much on the tame side, but really that doesn't affect the quality of the film. And I would like to thank Stephanie Sermon for the Patreon donation and the request to do this film. It was very fun to review. And of course, if you would like to request a movie review or a movie series review, please feel free to visit my Patreon page. But I think it's been a while since we've actually looked at a movie series, so for the next videos, that will definitely be our final destination. So until then, see you next time.